Are we live on D Live? I can't really tell. Yeah, I think we are. I think we might be. I think we might be live. Alright, so how's it going, guys? Hope you all are doing good. We need to talk about something really, really disturbing. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on BitChute, you're probably watching this at a later date. Right now, I really don't have the internet speed to be able to live stream on multiple platforms, but DLive is a really good upcoming platform. If you're watching this at some other place apart from DLive, it's probably uploaded later on. Uh, if you are watching this outside of DLive, links would be down there, down in the description to my DLive channel. If you guys could hop in and follow me, that would be really awesome. It's a really up and coming platform. I think it's one of the better streaming platforms out there, in my humble and, to be fair, limited information opinion. So if you guys want to check this platform out, that would be really cool. I think it's a really awesome platform for live streaming. So we got to talk about something really, really sinister for people that, for people who don't know. Avi Yemeni and Sydney Watson, two independent journalists from Australia. I love those two guys. Recently, they were supposed to come to the United States, and they just got detained. Avi Yemeni was deported back to Australia. It's it's messed up in ways. I don't know what's happening to the country, to be honest. So this is the story for people that you don't know. Several months ago, Jim Jeffries, the comedian that has a show on Comedy Central, invited Avi to be in one of his shows. This was several months ago. And essentially, he had a pretty long interview with Avi, and then he edited it up to misrepresent Avi in the worst possible way that he could, and then put it out in his television show, put it out in all his social media platforms, and so on. And by the time he aired it, this was after the New Zealand shooting, so he sort of tried to tie Avi in with the event. Well, while he actually filmed Avi, it was months before. Avi outsmarted him in the sense that he used some cell phones and got unedited footage of the whole interview. And later on, after Jim Jeffries put up the video, he showed his actual answers to the question, how Jim Jeffries misrepresented him, and essentially just slandered him, defamed him, painted him in the worst possible way, and he just exposed him for it. Furthermore, after Avi Yemeni exposed Jim Jeffries, Avi got taken down from Facebook, whereas Jim Jeffries, with all his platform, is still up there. The defamatory videos, content he made about Avi Yemeni is still up there. But Avi exposing Jim Jeffries got him banned on Facebook. People that shared it got banned on Facebook. And Comedy Central didn't even comment about it. Jim Jeffries didn't even comment about it. They just tried to sweep it under the rug. So Avi decided to come to the United States to confront Jim Jeffries, or Comedy Central. That's the story. Okay, let me see if my microphone... Okay, I should... So that's essentially the story. Now we're going to take a little bit of a break from this story and talk about something else. Let's see if I can set out my DLive platform. So essentially, I don't know if you guys had to travel outside of the United States, or if you had to travel into the United States. I don't know how familiar a lot of you guys are with the visa process. Let's say you're coming into the United States from Asia. I think for most countries in Asia, you have to apply for a visa to get into the United States. There are several categories of that visa. There's a student visa, which is the F1. There is a spouse visa, which is called the F2. There is a tourist visa. I don't know what the tourist visa is called. I think it's a J1 or something. So there are different visa categories. If you're applying for a visa, you fill up certain forms at certain agencies, not the embassy, certain visa application agencies. They send your paperwork to the embassy, and then you show up for an interview at the embassy, and then the embassy takes your passport and they put a stamp on it, saying that essentially the stamp sort of shows that you can come into the United States within a fixed period of time. That is the time for when the visa is applied. And also it shows that the embassy did a background check on you, and as of that point you're fine to come into the United States. Now, there are certain countries which have a unilateral agreement with the United States, and you don't necessarily need a visa. This might apply for Canadians, this might apply for other countries, but it applies for Australian citizens. So Avi applied for this visa waiver program where you can come into the United States without having the US embassies put a stamp on your visa. I think there are other countries that do that. If you know more about this process, let me know. For me, when I came to the US from Bangladesh, I had to get a visa, so I'm not entirely sure the logistics of this visa waiver program, but you guys let me know. So Avi came into the United States 6-7 months ago in this visa waiver program, and it stays valid for 2 years. So essentially, as far as Avi is concerned, he came into the United States legally. Sydney Watson, the other journalist who also got detained, is an American citizen. She has a dual citizenship. That she's a citizen of Australia and she's a citizen of the United States. Avi is a citizen of Israel and is a citizen of Australia, but Avi came into the United States legally. This is something really, really important. Before we get down to the story, before we hear from Avi, I have his video loaded. Before we go into the story, I want you guys to contextualize this. If you come into the United States illegally, if you just cross the border, and somehow, if you can make it to Los Angeles, if you can make it to San Francisco, or if you can make it to New York, I think, these are sanctuary cities. You're gold. You won't be deported back. If you're illegally in the United States and you go to one of these cities, you're gold. Contrary to this, here we have an individual who came to the United States legally and landed in Los Angeles, and someone else who is an American citizen that came to the United States. Well, she's an American citizen, so the legal illegal aspect doesn't matter. How were these people treated? Avi came to the United States legally, landed in Los Angeles, and got deported. Compare that with people who come to the United States illegally and make it to Los Angeles. Am I missing something here? Does this seem wrong to any of you guys? Okay, so I have Avi's video loaded up. Let's listen from him. Let me adjust the sound a little bit.
One, why they ever posted that fake news, why they continue to leave it up, the defamatory content, why they're deleting everybody who mentions it. And share this video or share the tr.news article that you're seeing this in and tag them on Instagram.
Guys, this is from tr.news. Please go in there, support the site, share the news. For those of you guys who don't know, Tommy Robinson, he's banned off Facebook and every social media platform. So if you guys want to support him, tr.news, that's the only way. Man, I gotta stop using online video converter. I keep getting pop-ups.
Twitter and keep the conversation going, because they can't. This is all it is. This whole story is. It is Comedy Central once again trying to shut down this story, trying to sweep it under the carpet, trying to get rid of it and shut me up. So the more you share it and the more you talk about it, the better it is. The better they'll see that they cannot actually win this. But the FBI, by the end of it, said that they're going to tell the Customs and Immigration that they think I pose no threat.
Okay, so this is the end of his interrogation. I should have loaded the video a little bit. I think he starts talking about it in the 6th minute, okay? I'm sorry about that, guys. Let's go back to 6 minutes when he starts explaining what actually happened. This is hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious in retrospect. Put yourself in Avi's shoes and it's kind of scary. And to see that the United States, which in my opinion is the greatest country on earth, don't get me wrong, but the fact that they would treat someone who legally came into the country this way is... I can't...
To see me on my entry to the United States, I sat down. Now, the FBI went through a full, there was probably an hour interrogation on my visit. The first thing they said to me, which is important to note, the first thing they said to me when we sat down is, we do not work for Comedy Central. We are a separate entity. And
okay, I'll stop here because Avi doesn't talk too much about it. Think about this. If you have law enforcement agents come up to you and say, by the way, We do not work for Comedy Central. We do not work for MSNBC. We are a separate entity. How bizarre is that? Isn't that assumed that you are a separate entity from Comedy Central? Unless Comedy Central or some other media platform is really pulling the strings here. I mean, that's one of those things where you saying you're not part of it, yeah, you're not part of Comedy Central, obviously. But it probably says more than you realize, and Avi definitely saw the humor in that.
I said, but Comedy Central's the complainant, the informant in this situation. They say, well, Comedy Central have put forward a number of complaints regarding your visit here, which we need to just clarify a few issues. And I was happy to, because I did nothing wrong, and I stand by everything I've said or posted or everything. So they started to go through all my posts regarding this trip, including, there was one where Politicalite posted an article just talking about the trip, and they said the Politicalite added the image. In fact, it's a really good photo. I'll add it in the comments here, maybe. It's a good photo. Me in Israel, in my military gear. I look good. Do I look good in it, babes?
Okay, Avi sort of glosses over this a little bit, but I do want to point out. So once he was in detention, people were the folks there, they were looking up stuff about him, including articles that were published about him. Now, for people that are familiar with how left-leaning outlets operate, how bizarre is this? So if you're outside of the United States and you happen to be center-right and you said something that the orthodox left finds to be offensive, which, let's face it, includes a huge list of things. If BuzzFeed puts out 30 articles misrepresenting you, if Huffington Post puts out 50 articles misrepresenting you, if CNN puts out 35 articles misrepresenting you, which they most likely will, that's going to factor in when you come into the United States. Now, that definitely factored in when Avi came into the United States. How bizarre is this?
That no one can hear. Do I look good? Yes, good. See? And she's not necessarily a gum person, but I look good in it.
Glad to see he sees
anyway,
the humor
so
in that.
Anyway, so Politicalite used that image, and for them it, they tried to take... It wasn't really them. Comedy Central was complaining that these were all threats violent threats against Comedy Central and against Jim Jeffries. Now, we went through each and every one of them, including that Politicalite article, every one of them. And by the end of the interrogation, I was cleared by the FBI. The FBI said to me, literally, we have no problem with you being here. We understand. And they actually thought it was kind of funny. They understood why I wanted to be in the States to clear my name. Why I wanted to ask Comedy Central, one, why they ever posted that fake news, why they continued to leave it up, the defamatory content, why they're deleting everybody who mentions it, and share this video or share the tr.news article that you're seeing this in, and tag them on Instagram, on Twitter, and keep the conversation going, because they can't.
By the way, guys, if you are on Twitter, if you are on Instagram, check out Avi Yemeni. You'd be able to see all the posts that were made by him and other people who are trying to expose Jim Jeffries for what they are, right? And I can assure you I shouldn't say that. They're crazy people. The post, as far as I've read and as far as you'd be able to see, did not, for the most part, does not include anything that can even remotely be misconstrued as a threat of violence. Not only that, Facebook and Instagram did this too to some extent. They were essentially removing people for even sharing the video that Avi did exposing Jim Jeffries. And I think Facebook was trying to say that it violated hate speech or some nebulous law like that, and Instagram was doing the same thing. So Facebook and Instagram were proactively trying to control for this hate speech or violence or whatever it is. All the posts that still remains on Instagram and Twitter and whatever are posts that it's very difficult to say that these violate any terms of service, or it's very difficult to say that it's threatening if you are not totally indoctrinated or if you're not coming at this from any particular angle.
This is all it is. This whole story is. It is Comedy Central once again trying to shut down this story, trying to sweep it under the carpet, trying to get rid of it and shut me up. So the more you share it and the more you talk about it, the better it is. The better they'll see that they cannot actually win this. But the FBI, by the end of it, said that they're going to tell the Customs and Immigration that they think I pose no threat. They did tell me, when you're doing whatever you're doing here, just be mindful that whatever language you use in your comments, that Comedy Central can't take it as, twisted as a threat, as a violent threat.
Okay, now this is where I sort of have to talk a little bit about it. Now, for folks that are coming into the U.S. from outside through a visa process, from what I understand, law enforcement agency in the United States and in your home country, they do a background check on you prior to you coming here. So if you're applying for a visa, there would be a background check done on you. That's, I believe, done with the U.S. authorities in conjunction with your home countries. They put the visa on you. But as far as you being allowed to come into the country, that is done by the customs enforcement. That is not necessarily the law enforcement agencies. These are two different things, and the reason why this is particularly important is that, as far as I understand, those are two different institutions. What Avi is about to say later on shows that Comedy Central, they were so triggered, they went out of their way to inform both these different agencies, try and not let these people get in. I mean, you don't have to try, just don't let these people get in. What I'm trying to say is, you gotta reach out to a lot of people to get two different government agencies do your bidding. And Comedy Central, a massive corporation, we're so scared of an independent journalist that this huge, I don't even know what the net worth or net value of Comedy Central is. We're talking about a massive corporation bribing different government agencies so that they do not get critiqued, so that they do not get exposed. Now, I don't know much about other countries, but the United States is one of the few places in the world where we value the rights of an individual, perhaps in almost unparalleled level than most other parts of the world. By the standards of the United States, if this particular incident does not worry you, I don't know what is. I don't know what should. Because understand the repercussions of this. Comedy Central is not a political organization. They're an entertainment outlet. And the fact that, as the name suggests, they do comedy. The fact that these people can stop independent content creators from coming over to the United States and just pose a very simple question. Why did you misrepresent me in your comedy sketch or in this particular content that you produced? This bears very little political implication. The fact that these people would go to such epic levels for something which, in the grand scheme of things, honestly, doesn't it feel like a little trivial? But this really should worry you.
Or a threat to violence against them, or we're gonna have to track you down again. And I said, no worries. But you can see, like, they cleared everything I said. Nothing was a threat to violence. I've never been violent. In fact, they were starting to ask me about my Israeli military service and whether I'm going to obtain weapons in America. I said to them, the biggest weapon I have is here right now in my bag. It's a microphone and camera. That is the only.
Okay, so that's essentially that's the gist of it, guys. Please check out the full news. It's right here. That's the link, tr.news. If you want to keep following Tommy Robinson, he's off all political platforms, so it's tr.news. Go check it out. Check out the full story. Now, Avi, that was him. He came into the United States legally, but he's not an American citizen. Sydney, she's a dual citizen. She's an American citizen and she's an Australian citizen. She has an American passport. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have dual citizenship. I personally don't. And what happens... Oh, by the way, this is the video of Avi exposing Jim Jeffries. This video got Avi banned from Facebook. But Jim Jeffries' original content, which is just misrepresenting him, is still up on Facebook. Kind of weird. Anyway, so check out this whole article share this article, if you can. That's the only way we can fight back. Now, there's also something I need to point out. This came out in the 13th. Avi was detained on the 11th. He was in the detention for about 15, 16 hours, and then he's sent back home. Australian left-wing media that has a massive hard-on for Avi started immediately slandering him, started immediately misrepresenting him. Now, generally, the ethics of journalism includes that when you're talking about someone, you should at least make an effort to reach out to that person so that their side of the story can at least be heard. That's a basic ethics of journalism. Now, these left-wing media outlets, these journalists, they knew that Avi was in detention, and after detention he was in a plane. Now, if you're going to reach out to him somewhere between this time, he most likely will not be able to comment. That seems fairly obvious, right? But left-wing media in Australia didn't care. They technically reached out to Avi, but that's about as bad as it gets. Now, I've been listening to some of the left-wing media narratives, and they say that they've reached out to Avi Yemeni and he didn't comment. Well, no shit, he didn't comment. He was in detention and then he was on a plane. How is he? I mean, the total lack of journalistic ethics is crazy, is beyond imagination to me. Now, this is Avi. Let's listen to the case of Sydney Watson. Bear in mind, she's an American citizen. If you have dual passports while traveling, there are no, to the best of my knowledge, you guys can fact check me on this and correct me. To the best of my knowledge, let's say you are a Canadian citizen and you are an American citizen. And let's say you're traveling to a country where it's easier if you have a Canadian passport. You can always scan in through immigration using your Canadian passport. You don't have to show your American passport. Similarly, you can do the vice versa with the American passport. What I'm trying to say is when you have multiple passports, it's really up to you when you choose to use which one in immigration. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think the immigration enforcers, let's say you have a dual citizenship of Canada and the United States and you scan your Canadian passport somewhere, usually they don't stop you saying, hey, do you have an American passport? We want to see that too. Now, the reason why I say this is because when Sydney was recently detained by the FBI, they put up some BS saying, hey, you have two passports. Why do you travel one way using Australian passport and then you scan in using an American passport? That, to the best of my understanding, I think is utter BS, and it totally disgusts me that the United States agency would do that. But I might be wrong. I'm not a lawyer. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Let's listen from Sydney Watson.
Eventually, when the agent came back and spoke to me, she basically said that she'd Googled us or looked us up online, and she said, yeah, I can see that you're a journalist. And then the line of questioning changed.
Okay, now, once again, I want to talk about something, but before that, let me close this pop-up. Guys, do not use online video converter. I used it once, and I think I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. Anyways, coming back to Sydney Watson. These people Googled her. This is particularly important. If you have center-right stances on issues, or even center-left stance on issues, but just deviate on one or two things, the kind of things that mainstream news outlet will say about you. Now, there are certain people like Ben Shapiro, for example. A few days ago, The Economist called him alt-right or something. And Ben Shapiro went after him, and within 4 hours, The Economist apologized. Ben Shapiro, I believe, is a trained lawyer. Is he a lawyer or did he go to law school? I'm not 100% in that. If he's not a trained lawyer, I'm pretty sure he has a legal team. He works for the Daily Wire. I'm pretty sure they have a legal team. If you are an independent content creator like Sydney Watson, like Avi Yemeni, who does not have a platform big enough to get their own legal team, when you get slandered by mainstream media, there's nothing you can do about it. So whatever BS left-wing outlets put up about Sydney Watson, it's going to be there. Now, if you're traveling and if you are right of center, and if people look up what mainstream outlets talk about you, what they say, that's going to put you in a bit of a sticky situation, especially if you're not big enough to have your own legal team. So essentially, if you're right of center, You got to get your own legal team, and every time you get slandered, you got to go after that outlet so they revise what they wrote about you. Apart from that, that puts independent content creators at a really sticky situation. It's like corporates just stomping on the little guy, the way I understand it.
And it suddenly stopped being about why are you here, where are you going, ha ha, let's have a casual conversation. And she says, the FBI needs to speak to you. Which was absurd, because I'm thinking, I don't know what I've done. And I didn't know that it was, I wasn't aware that Avi was also going through all of this as well, which I'll explain what happened to him in a second. But for me, having two agents come up to me from the FBI, hold up their thing, like in the movie, it says FBI on their little card thing, was one of the most disconcerting and bizarre moments for me. And then they start a line of questioning about...
I should point out that people that come into the United States illegally don't have to go through this. Maybe that's worth noting.
Again, what we're doing, where we're going. And then they start specifically asking me about Jim Jeffries. Why are you going to Baltimore? Why are you going to the Jim Jeffries show? What's Comedy Central got to do with all of this?
FBI started asking her about Jim Jeffries. FBI, y'all got nothing better to do? You taking orders from Jim Jeffries and Comedy Central. Damn it.
And it was at that point that I'm thinking, you know what, this is actually not about me being a dual citizen with two passports. This is about something else entirely. I'm answering their questions. I'm telling them to the best of my ability what we're doing, because I have nothing to hide. Mind you, when they were talking to me, they sort of flagged the fact that I didn't have to answer any questions because, if I didn't want to incriminate myself, then I didn't have to say anything. And I'm thinking, well, we're not doing anything wrong, so why on earth would I incriminate myself? But I definitely felt like the name of the game changed when they worked out that I was a U.S. citizen and they started treating me differently. I feel...
Now, there are parts that I skipped over in this video. Sydney does point out that she feels that the agents there were planning on deporting her as well as Avi Yemeni, but because she's an American citizen, they couldn't do that, and they had a different game plan. I just skipped over that part, so I wanted to let you guys know.
Like, that's when they were like, hey, maybe we can't actually keep her and treat her the way that we're planning on treating her. So I'm answering their questions. They're asking me if we're going to get firearms, if we're going to obtain weapons, if we're going to be violent, and the answer...
Okay, I should point out, Sydney Watson is an American citizen. Second Amendment. She has done nothing wrong. Now, her answer to this question is no, and she tells you the rest of it, that she's very nonviolent and she has no... But my concern is that she's an American citizen. Is she not allowed to obtain firearms? What is going on, Americans?
Of course, was no, because never once have I indicated that violence is acceptable. In fact, if you followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I'm very anti-violence. I think that that is not the way to solve political issues, and that's not the way to promote discourse and have discussion. And Avi as well, he's a firebrand, sure, but he has absolutely never, ever, ever indicated that violence is the way to go. He's never...
Now, with Avi being a foreign citizen, if he had said that he did intend on getting firearms, definitely it would have ended up worse for him. Sydney, by the way, is an American citizen. She is allowed to own a firearm. She's allowed to obtain a firearm. If she had said in this situation, yes, I'm an American citizen, and I wish to obtain a firearm for self-defense while I'm here, if she had tried to exercise her Second Amendment rights, she would have been in trouble. I'm not a lawyer. I am fairly retarded with these things. If you have legal expertise in U.S. constitutional law, please help me understand this, because I'm obviously missing something. I don't get it.
Never incited violence. He's never encouraged it. In fact, it's the same thing with him, where he has said it's not the answer. At this point too, they also told me that they had Avi as well, and that he was also detained and being questioned as well. And I'm not sure if Avi and I were spoken to by the same agents, but basically, again, they were really nice to me, and I answered all their questions. They seemed satisfied with that. They made a lot of notes. They thanked us. I've come to find out that they thanked Avi as well, but they thanked us for our cooperation, and they said that they're going to be making a full report about it. And I was just upset, because to be held for 2 hours, could be asked all these questions, have absolutely no concept of why it was happening.
So I think her video came out Avi Yemeni, so she didn't really get to check his story. And that's essentially what it is, what's going on. This is incredibly scary, incredibly concerning. I don't know how this works out. So once again, you guys, if you are not following tr.news, please do so. That's the only way you can keep up with Tommy Robinson and what he's up to, because he's not in Facebook or YouTube or anything. They got rid of him, so this is the only way you can hear from him. I would really recommend doing this. Look at this particular news article, share it with your friends, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook if you are still there. Although I guess if you share it on Facebook, you might be gone. What bothers me is that Comedy Central is... Well, I shouldn't say what bothers me. There's so many things about this story that I find just ridiculous, if I'm being perfectly honest. You have a massive corporation like Comedy Central that misrepresented these people, went out of their way to misrepresent him, slandered him. And you have some independent content creators that tried to clear their name, essentially. And this is how they're being treated. I don't know how to process this. I cannot believe I'm seeing this happen in the United States. Now, there are certain parts of the world where if this happened, I would have been like, yeah, that seems consistent with what generally happens. If this happened in Southeast Asia, I would be like, yeah, that's about the norm. That seems believable. But this is happening in the United States, and I don't think many of us realize that it can get this bad. A few weeks ago, Avi was in Steven Crowder's show, and while he was on stream, he was telling Steven Crowder, saying, listen, hey, while I'm in the United States, Comedy Central obviously doesn't want me to go there. I might get deported or something. And Steven Crowder essentially laughed it off. I mean, it was meant to be laughed off. Both, I don't know to what extent Avi meant it as a joke, but most people in that show, they thought it was a joke. Is this the level of political crackdown we're seeing? Unbelievable, guys. Please share this news article. This is the article there. If you're watching this on YouTube or BitChute, I'll put this article in the video description. Share it. Make some noise about it, because I don't know. This does not seem right. And if this is what's happening in the U.S., I can only imagine what's happening in more authoritarian parts. We're talking about the United Kingdom, Germany. I don't know. This is ridiculous. Anyways, I just wanted to touch base with you guys, talk about this. Once again, I'm live on DLive. I'll be shutting off in a little bit. If you want to follow me on DLive, and if you want to support the platform, I don't really know much about the platform as of right now. As of right now, it seems to, in my opinion, and full disclosure, when it comes to technology, I am as retarded as it gets. I fully acknowledge that. But as far as streaming platforms go, I think DLive is better than YouTube or Twitch. You guys let me know if I'm correct. Support this upcoming platform. Twitch is a really strict platform, and I don't think people like us would be able to be on there. YouTube, you guys know the deal with YouTube, so do support it. I don't know the people that created this platform. I don't know where their mentality is. I can't say for sure one way or the other whether they will go down the authoritarian route or something. But for now, I think it's a promising platform. So if you guys are watching this later on some other platform, and do come over to DLive and follow me, or just follow us